It happened on a Tuesday. I was in my home office finishing work when a notification flashed on our shared tablet. It was a text, synced from my fiancée Ava's phone. We rarely touched the tablet. It mostly sat charging, but I glanced at it. The message was from her mom. Her mom. Any progress getting him to discuss the loans? Then Ava's reply popped up as I looked. Not yet, he's dodging it, but don't worry. I'll convince him before the wedding. Once he clears them, I'm out. I stared, frozen. The words felt unreal, like my mind refused to accept them. I run my own design firm. My life revolves around precision, how pieces connect, and this one sentence shattered the entire framework of my world. Out. Once he clears them. Not a prank, not a mix-up. A calculated, cold-blooded plan. My first instinct was pure fury. I wanted to grab the tablet and smash it against the wall. I wanted to storm into the living room where I could hear her giggling at some TV show and let loose. But then, a strange, chilling calm took over. This wasn't something to yell about. Yelling is for when you're trying to salvage something. This was already broken. All that remained was the cleanup. I snapped a photo of the tablet screen with my phone. I emailed it to myself. Then I scrolled up the message thread on the tablet. She'd been sloppy, so confident her steady, predictable fiancé would never check. It was all there, months of plotting. A meticulous scheme, orchestrated by her mother, to get me to pay off her $150,000 student loan debt from her literature degree. Her mom's texts coached her on what to say, how to behave. Don't push too hard. Frame it as your shared future. Tell him you can't feel secure until you're both debt-free as a couple. Shed a tear if needed. He'll feel responsible. Ava's responses. He's so caught up in wedding plans, it's the perfect cover. I almost feel guilty sometimes. He's a decent guy. Her mom's reply, don't feel guilty. Feel clever. This is for your future, not his. The one that hit hardest was about what came next. What do I do after? It'll look suspicious if I leave right away. Stay a year. Make it convincing. Then say you're unfulfilled, you've drifted apart. By then, the money's spent. The loans are gone. You walk away clean. A perfect scheme. For 2 years, I thought we were building a future. She thought she was pulling off a scam. I closed the app. I walked to the kitchen, my hand steady as I poured a glass of water. She was still on the couch. Hey, love, she said, eyes on the TV. You okay? You're quiet. Just thinking about a project, I said. My voice was normal. I felt eerily calm. She thought she was playing a master game, assuming I didn't even see the board. She had no clue I'd just seen every move she planned. And I was about to turn the game upside down. Update 1. The 2 weeks that followed were the strangest of my life. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Confronting her would lead to denials, crocodile tears, and empty promises. It would be chaotic. I don't do chaos. I do precise, clean, and final. Thanks for the comments on my first post. Many of you suggested playing the long game. I couldn't. Every second in the same house felt like a deception. My plan had to be swift and devastating. First, I gathered evidence. Every text. I also reviewed our finances. She lived in my house. I covered the mortgage, utilities, everything. She drove a car in my name. I paid her insurance, gas, our trips, our dinners out. Her modest gallery job salary was her pocket money. My income was our lifestyle. I'd been supporting a leech, and she planned to drain me one last time before cutting loose. My lawyer, a no-frills guy named Greg, confirmed my moves. She has no legal claim to your house or assets as a girlfriend. Her plan depends on you voluntarily paying those loans. So you're going to agree that was the strategy. Let her think she'd won. Lead her to the finish line, let her feel the triumph, then yank the ground out from under her so hard she'd be reeling. So I played the role. A few days after finding the text, I brought it up during dinner prep. I sighed heavily. I've been thinking about what you said, about your loans, about starting our life together. She turned, eyes wide with feigned hope. You have? Yeah, I said. I don't want that weighing us down. It's my wedding gift to you. I'll pay them off. She burst into tears, a performance worthy of awards. She hugged me, sobbing about how I was the kindest, most amazing man. She called her mom right after, and I heard her mother's gleeful cackle through the phone. The prey had bitten the bait. There's one thing, I added after she hung up. I don't want to just transfer the money. This is a big moment for us. I want to do it right. I want a dinner, a celebration with our parents. I'll have my bank prepare a cashier's check for the full amount. I'll present it to you that night in front of our families, a true symbol of our new life together. She was overjoyed, a public display of her victory, more than she'd hoped for. She thought I was being sentimental. I was setting the trap. The dinner was last night, a private room at the city's finest restaurant. Ava and her parents sat on one side, my parents on the other. Ava was radiant, beaming. Her mom looked smug, like she'd won a prize. Her dad, a good man I now realized was in the dark, seemed genuinely happy for his daughter. We went through the motions, chit-chat, wine, appetizers. Ava and her mom kept sharing sly glances. My parents talked about their excitement for the wedding. After the main course, I stood, holding a single envelope. As you all know, I began, I've gathered you here for a special reason. Ava and I are about to begin our life together, and I want to start it right. Ava, your student loan debt has been a heavy burden, and because I love you, I want to lift it. As my wedding gift, I'm paying off your entire loan debt. My parents smiled, touched by the gesture. Ava's dad patted my arm. Ava and her mom were practically buzzing with glee. I opened the envelope, but instead of a check, I pulled out a single sheet. It was a printed, enlarged screenshot of her text from 2 weeks ago. I placed it in the center of the table. Don't worry. Once he pays off my loans, I'm out. The silence was deafening. Ava's face went from glowing joy to ashen terror in a heartbeat. Her mom looked like she'd been struck. My parents stared at the paper, then at Ava, their expressions shifting to shock and disgust. Her dad read the text, his face draining of color. He looked at his daughter, then his wife, realization dawning painfully. This was never a marriage, I said, voice icy and steady. It was a scam. A well-crafted scam, I'll give you that. Your mother deserves credit. I pulled out more papers, copies of the text exchanges between Ava and her mom, detailing the scheme. I handed a set to my parents and one to her dad. These should clear up any questions, I said. Ava started sobbing, a pitiful, choking sound. James, no, it's not what it seems. I can explain, no need. I cut her off. Your texts explain it all. The wedding's off. We're done. I looked at her dad. I'm sorry you had to learn this way. You raised a daughter, but your wife raised a schemer. Then I stood. Mom, Dad, let's go. We left them in the ruins. The fallout started before I reached my car. A frantic voicemail from Ava, screaming and crying, then a text. You've destroyed my life. My reply, no, I just stopped funding it. I got home and her stuff was already gone. I'd had movers pack and deliver it to her parents' house during dinner. The locks were changed. The digital code was reset. For the past 24 hours, my phone's been a battlefield. I blocked Ava and her mom's numbers, but this morning, a desperate voicemail came from a blocked number. It was her. James, please, she sobbed. You can't do this. I messed up horribly. My mom pushed me. Please, I'm going to your parents' house. I'll talk to them. They love me. They'll make you listen. She thinks this is a bargain. She thinks her fake tears can sway my parents. She doesn't know my father. She doesn't know what happens when you try to scam a family of designers. She's about to face the man who taught me to spot a critical flaw from a distance. Hey everyone, it's James, the OP from the student loan scam post. The response to my first post was overwhelming. I read hundreds of comments, and it felt validating to know I wasn't irrational for how I handled it. Many of you asked what happened when my ex-fiancée, Ava, confronted my parents. She did, and it was more spectacular than I could have planned. Here's the final chapter. After the dinner where I exposed everything, I went silent, blocked Ava and her mom on all platforms. The quiet was refreshing. My parents, though, were getting bombarded. My mom said Ava left a dozen emotional voicemails claiming it was all a misunderstanding, that her mother pressured her into a joke. My mom wasn't fooled. I'd warned them about Ava's last desperate threat to visit their house. My dad's only reply was a cool, "Let her try." It happened Saturday. I was at home, trying to enjoy a calm weekend, when my dad called. His voice was steady, but had that sharp edge I knew well. "James," he said, "the wrecking crew's here." He put the phone on speaker and placed it on his study table by the front door. I had a front row seat. I heard the doorbell. My mom opened the door. Her tone was polite, but cold. "Ava?" "We didn't expect you." Ava's voice was heavy with fake sobs. "I'm so sorry to disturb you. I need to talk. I need to explain. James won't listen, and he's not thinking straight. He's throwing everything away over a misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding when it's in writing," a deep voice interrupted. My dad, stepping into the hall. "My son showed us your texts." "All of them," Ava cried harder. "That wasn't me. It was my mother. She's obsessed with my loans. She put those ideas in my head. I love James. I'd never hurt him." My dad let her finish. Silence lingered. Then he spoke. "I'm a designer, Ava. My son is a designer. We create things, buildings, relationships, families. The first rule of creating anything lasting is a strong foundation. You don't build on lies, deceit, or a blueprint of fraud." "It wasn't fraud," she wailed. "It was a mistake." "Was it a mistake when you texted your mother you'd stay a year to make it look good before leaving?" my dad asked, voice cutting like a blade. "Was it a mistake when you wrote that once debt-free? You'd have options and wouldn't be trapped?" "That's not a mistake. That's a carefully crafted scheme. Technically impressive, morally repulsive." He wasn't shouting. He was dismantling her piece by piece with precision. "You didn't come to explain," he continued. "You came to execute the next phase of your plan. You couldn't manipulate my son, so you're trying his parents. You see us as a weak point to exploit, but you're wrong. This family isn't fragile." As Ava started another round of excuses, a car pulled up. Another knock. My mom opened the door. "Good grief," she muttered. It was Ava's parents. Her dad, Robert, led, looking uneasy. Her mom, Linda, followed, her face a mask of feigned concern. "We're so sorry to intrude," Robert began, trying to sound rational. "Our daughter's a mess, as you can imagine. This is a terrible misunderstanding. James may have overreacted." My dad cut him off. "Overreacted?" "Robert, I saw the texts. Your wife guided your daughter step by step to commit financial fraud against my son." "Did you know?" Robert bristled, feigning outrage. "Of course not. I'm as shocked as you. Linda was just trying to ease Ava's financial stress. Her approach was misguided, but her intentions were good." He was convincing. At the dinner, I'd almost pitied him, thinking he was clueless in his wife and daughter's plot. But my dad's been designing and negotiating for 40 years. He spots lies instantly. "So," my dad said slowly, "your wife and daughter planned this for over 6 months, and you, her husband and father, had no idea. You live together, share finances, and never once discussed a plan to extract $150,000 from my son?" "I'm a busy man," Robert said dismissively. "I don't get involved in their daily drama." "I see," my dad said. Then he landed the final strike. "That's curious because I spoke with my son's lawyer this morning. He was fascinated by the legal definition of conspiracy to commit fraud. He noted that in such cases, investigators often review a family's financial records, phone logs, bank statements, everything, to determine who knew what. A forensic accountant can uncover remarkable things. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. It worked. Robert's face paled. Linda gasped. "This is too much." Robert stammered, his facade crumbling. "There's no need for lawyers." "Isn't there?" my dad countered. "Your daughter tried to steal enough money for a house down payment. That's not a misunderstanding. That's grand larceny dressed up nicely. And you, by your own admission, either knew and did nothing, making you complicit, or were so willfully blind to a scheme under your roof that it's gross negligence. Either way, you have no standing here." He turned to Ava. "You came looking for an ally. You won't find one here. You targeted my son, thinking his kindness was weakness. You saw his stability as an opportunity. You're a predator, and you're no longer welcome in this family or this house. The engagement is over. The relationship is over. If you contact my son or us again, we'll pursue a restraining order. Clear?" Ava stood speechless, her fake tears gone, replaced by raw shock. She'd been so sure she could sway them. She walked into what she thought was a discussion and found a wrecking ball. "Now," my dad said, voice dropping to a final curt tone, "I suggest you and your family leave. You have much to discuss. I presume I heard the door shut." My dad picked up the phone. "Still there, James?" "I'm here," I said. My voice wavered slightly. "It's done," he said. "The ground's cleared." The aftermath was even more satisfying. Robert, terrified my dad would follow through and his own questionable finances might be exposed, unraveled. He and Linda had a massive fight in my parents' driveway. He blamed her for the plan's failure. She blamed him for not playing his part better. Ava was left with nothing. Her parents are reportedly on the brink of divorce, their marriage as flimsy as the one she tried to build with me. Her dad cut her off financially, enraged by the public embarrassment and risk she caused. Ava's now back home, in a house divided, with no fiancé, no job to cover her bills, and $150,000 in student loans that are, and will always be, hers alone. She didn't just lose a fiancé, she lost her entire network. She bet everything on a flawless scheme and lost it all. The demolition is complete. My fiancé announced, "I've added my ex to the wedding list. If you really care, you won't object." I only smiled. All right. What she didn't know was that I had already invited his wife as my date. That rehearsal dinner turned into a story people still whisper about. I'm Daniel, 29, and I'm writing this from my brother's couch 3 weeks after what was supposed to be my wedding day. I still have the tuxedo hanging in his guest room closet, tags still on. $800 for a suit I wore for exactly 45 minutes before everything went nuclear. I met Rachel 4 years ago at a mutual friend's birthday party. She was a pediatric nurse, kind to everyone, had this laugh that made you want to keep talking just to hear it again. We got engaged last October after I proposed at the beach where we had our first date. The wedding was set for June 15th. Everything was planned, deposits paid, invitations sent. I thought I knew exactly who I was marrying. I was wrong. It started in April. We were at her apartment going over the final guest list. I was on the couch with my laptop. She was cross-legged on the floor with a bunch of spreadsheets that honestly looked more complicated than they needed to be. So my final count is 97, I said. How many do you have? 103, she said, not looking up. But I'm adding one more. Okay, who? Tyler. I stopped typing. Tyler. Her ex-boyfriend from college. The guy she dated for 3 years before they broke up right after graduation. The guy whose name came up way too often in casual conversation for my comfort. But I'd always brushed it off as just being part of her history. Your ex Tyler? I asked carefully. Yeah. We've been talking lately and he reached out about the wedding. He's happy for us and wants to celebrate with me. I think it would be nice. Rachel, that's kind of weird, don't you think? She finally looked up. Why is it weird? He's part of my past. We're friends now. Mature adults can be friends with their exes. I'm not saying they can't, but inviting him to our wedding feels like crossing a line. What line? Daniel, if you really cared about me, you wouldn't object to this. You'd understand that my friendships are important to me. There it was. The classic manipulation wrapped in reasonable-sounding words. If I objected, I was the insecure boyfriend. If I didn't care enough, I was the problem. How long have you been talking to him? I asked. A few weeks. He messaged me on Instagram congratulating us. We just caught up. And you didn't mention this to me? It didn't seem important. We were just chatting. I sat there trying to figure out if I was overreacting. Maybe I was being insecure. Maybe this was normal and I was the weird one for feeling uncomfortable. Fine, I said. Invite him. Really? She seemed surprised. Yeah, if it's important to you. She got up and hugged me. Thank you, babe. This means a lot. See? This is why I love you. You're so understanding. I nodded and went back to my laptop. But something felt off. The way she'd said, "We've been talking lately," like it was casual, but she'd never mentioned it once. The way she'd immediately jumped to questioning whether I cared about her when I hesitated. That night, I did something I'm not proud of. I looked up Tyler on social media, found him pretty easily. Tyler Morrison, 30, working in pharmaceutical sales in Portland, married. His wife's name was Amy, and from the looks of their photos, they'd been married about 2 years. They had a golden retriever and did a lot of hiking. Here's the thing. If Tyler was married and just being friendly, why would Rachel make such a big deal about inviting him? Why would she frame it as a test of whether I cared about her? I sat on this information for 2 days. Then I called my sister Kate, who's basically my moral compass for situations like this. She's testing you, Kate said immediately. She wants to see if you'll fight for her or if you'll just roll over. But what if I'm reading too much into this? Daniel, listen to your gut. When has your gut ever been wrong about her? My gut had been right before. 6 months into dating, my gut told me she was still texting her ex. She was. A year in, my gut said she was lying about a work trip. Turned out she'd gone to a concert with some guy from the hospital. Each time I'd ignored it because I loved her and wanted to believe the best. What should I do? I asked Kate. I have an idea, but you might think it's petty. Tell me anyway. Update 1. Kate's idea was simple but brilliant. If Rachel could invite her ex to our wedding, I could invite his wife, as my +1, to the rehearsal dinner. It took me a week to work up the courage. I created a fake Instagram account and messaged Amy Morrison. I kept it straightforward. Hi Amy, you don't know me, but my name is Daniel Chen. I'm getting married next month, and my fiancé recently invited your husband Tyler to our wedding. I didn't realize they'd been back in contact until she added him to the guest list. I wanted to reach out to you directly because I believe in transparency. Would you be willing to talk on the phone? She responded within an hour. What the hell are you talking about? We talked that night. Amy had no idea Tyler had been messaging Rachel. She'd never heard Rachel's name. Tyler had told her he was going to a work buddy's wedding in June, and she hadn't thought twice about it. He told me it was someone from his sales team, Amy said. Her voice was shaking. He said it was in Eugene and he'd drive down for the day. It's in Portland, at the Sentinel Hotel. Jesus Christ. We talked for an hour. Amy was a middle school science teacher, sharp and direct. She wasn't hysterical, just coldly angry. By the end of the conversation, we had a plan. I'll come to your rehearsal dinner, she said, as your guest, and we'll see what happens when Tyler sees me there. Are you sure? I asked. Oh, I'm sure. If my husband is sneaking around to attend his ex-girlfriend's wedding, I want to know why, and I want him to know that I know. I sent Amy the rehearsal dinner details. It was scheduled for June 14th at a restaurant downtown, Just family and wedding party. 40 people total. Rachel had insisted Tyler come to the dinner too, even though he wasn't in the wedding party. He'll feel left out otherwise, she'd said. Plus, I want him to meet everyone. The red flags were now basically on fire, but I kept my mouth shut and played along. The week before the wedding, Rachel was stressed about details. Flowers, seating charts, last-minute RSVPs. I was calm, suspiciously calm. She even commented on it. "You're being so chill about everything," she said one night. "Most grooms are freaking out by now." "I just trust that everything will work out how it's supposed to," I said. She smiled and kissed me. "See? This is why we're perfect together." Update 2. Rehearsal dinner night arrived. June 14th, 6:30 p.m. I got there early with my family. My parents, my brother Marcus, Kate, and her husband. Rachel arrived with her parents and her sister. Everyone was in good spirits, taking photos, hugging, being excited. Tyler showed up at 7 p.m. I recognized him from his photos. Tall, athletic build, perfect teeth. The kind of guy who probably peaked in college and was still riding that confidence. He walked in, wearing a navy blazer and khakis, carrying a bottle of wine. Rachel's face lit up when she saw him. She actually squealed and ran over to hug him. The hug lasted about 3 seconds too long. I watched her dad's expression shift from confusion to something harder. "Everyone, this is Tyler," Rachel announced. "We went to college together." "Tyler, this is, well, everyone." Tyler shook hands around the room. When he got to me, his grip was firm, eye contact steady. "Congratulations, man. Rachel's an amazing woman. You're lucky." "I know," I said, smiling. "Thanks for coming." Rachel seated Tyler near her end of the table. I was at the head with her, but Tyler was only 3 seats away, close enough for conversation. Amy arrived at 7:20 p.m. I'd been watching the door. When she walked in, I stood up immediately and went to greet her. She was prettier in person, dark hair, professional demeanor, wearing a simple black dress. She looked like she was going into battle, which I guess she was. "Amy, thanks for coming," I said, loud enough for nearby people to hear. "Everyone, this is my friend Amy. We met through a mutual connection and I wanted her to be here tonight." Kate caught my eye from across the room. She knew. She gave me the smallest nod. Tyler hadn't looked up yet. He was laughing at something Rachel's sister had said. Amy and I walked toward the table. I'd saved her a seat next to Kate, which put her directly across from Tyler. That's when he saw her. I watched the color drain from his face. Literally watched it happen. His mouth opened slightly. Amy sat down, smiled pleasantly at everyone, and said hello. Rachel was oblivious. She was too busy talking to her mom about the flower arrangements. Tyler stood up abruptly. "I need to... bathroom." "You okay, man?" I asked innocently. Yeah, just... be right back." He practically ran out of the dining room. Amy excused herself 30 seconds later. Kate went with her. They were gone for 10 minutes. When they came back, Tyler's face was red, and Amy looked completely composed. They sat back down without a word. Rachel finally noticed something was off. "Tyler, you okay?" "You look weird." "I'm fine," he said quietly. "Do you two know each other?" Rachel asked, looking between Tyler and Amy. Amy smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Oh yes, Tyler's my husband." The table went silent, like every conversation just stopped. Rachel's face went through about 5 different expressions in 3 seconds. "Wait, what?" "I'm Amy Morrison, Tyler's wife. We've been married for 2 years." Amy's voice was calm, almost cheerful. "Daniel invited me here tonight as his guest. Small world, right?" Rachel looked at me. I sipped my water. "You knew?" Rachel's voice was barely above a whisper. "I found out when I looked Tyler up after you insisted on inviting him. Saw he was married. Thought it would be nice for Amy to join us since her husband was coming to celebrate our wedding." "This is insane," Rachel said. She turned to Tyler. You told me you were divorced. Oh, this was even better than I'd hoped. You told her you were divorced? Amy's voice got sharp. When did you tell her that? Tyler looked like he wanted to dissolve into the floor. Amy, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been messaging your ex-girlfriend for months? That you lied to me about whose wedding this was? That you told her you were divorced? Amy stood up. You know what? I don't need to hear this here. We're leaving. Amy, please. Now, Tyler. They left. Tyler didn't even look back at Rachel. The table was still silent. Rachel's mom was staring at her daughter. Her dad looked furious. Rachel, her dad said slowly. What the hell was that? I didn't know he was lying, Rachel stammered. He said he was divorced. He said he wanted to reconnect as friends. For months? I said. You've been talking to him for months and you described it as a few weeks of casual catching up. Daniel, I can explain. Were you planning to leave me? I asked. The question surprised even me, but I needed to know. She didn't answer immediately. That told me everything. I don't know, she finally said. I've been confused. Tyler and we had something special. When he reached out, it brought up old feelings, but I thought he was available. You thought you could have him back, I finished. And you invited him to our wedding to see if there was still something there. You were keeping me as backup. That's not fair. Isn't it? I stood up. You manipulated me into accepting this. You made it about whether I cared about you. You guilted me into letting you bring the guy you were emotionally cheating with to our wedding. My mom put her hand on my arm. Daniel, honey. I'm done, I said. Rachel, the wedding's off. Keep the dress, keep the deposits, keep whatever you want. I'm out. I walked out of that restaurant and didn't look back. Update 3. The next 48 hours were chaos. Rachel called me 37 times. I know because I counted before I blocked her number. Her mom called. Her sister called. Even Tyler called once, which was bold considering his own marriage was imploding. I stayed at Marcus's place. Kate came over the next morning with coffee and bagels. That was the most savage thing I've ever seen you do, she said, grinning. I'm proud of you. I feel like I should feel worse than I do, I admitted. Why? She was using you as a safety net while she chased her ex. You just exposed the truth. My mom called that afternoon. Daniel, Rachel's mother wants to know if there's any way to salvage this. They've lost so much money on deposits. That's not my problem anymore, Mom. I know, honey. I'm just passing along the message. For what it's worth, your father and I support your decision. What she did was unforgivable. I found out through Kate's friend, who knew someone at Rachel's hospital, that Tyler and Amy were getting divorced. Apparently, Amy had found months of messages between Tyler and Rachel. Nothing explicitly physical, but emotional affair written all over it. Rachel had been telling Tyler she made a mistake letting him go. Tyler had been telling her he'd made a mistake marrying someone else. Rachel tried to show up at my apartment 2 weeks after the rehearsal dinner. I wasn't there. I'd essentially moved into Marcus's place. She left a letter taped to my door. I read it once and threw it away. It was 5 pages of justifications and explanations, and I never meant to hurt you. But here's the thing, she did mean to hurt me. Maybe not consciously, but she'd been willing to risk our entire relationship to see if she could get Tyler back. She'd been willing to humiliate me by bringing him to our wedding. She'd just assumed I'd never find out the truth. Final update. It's been 3 weeks. I'm doing okay. Better than okay on some days. My company gave me 2 weeks off, which helped. I've been hiking a lot, trying to clear my head. Amy texted me last week. Thank you for inviting me. You saved me from years of being married to a liar. My lawyer says the divorce should be final by August. I told her I was sorry everything went down the way it did. She said she wasn't sorry at all. Better to know now than find out 5 years and 2 kids from now. Rachel got let go from her job, not because of the wedding drama, but because apparently her performance had been slipping for months. She'd been distracted. I wonder why. I heard she moved back in with her parents. Tyler moved to Seattle, probably trying to start over where nobody knows his story. The worst part? We'd sent out 200 invitations. The wedding website is still up because I don't have the login to take it down. People still occasionally text me asking what happened. I've started just saying irreconcilable differences and leaving it at that. Kate wants to set me up with one of her co-workers. I told her I need at least 6 months before I even think about dating again. Maybe a year. Maybe forever. The tuxedo is still hanging in Marcus's guest room. I should return it, get the $800 back. But part of me wants to keep it as a reminder, not of what I lost, but of what I dodged. Edit 1. A lot of people are asking if I feel bad about how public the confrontation was. Honestly? Number. She made it public by insisting Tyler come to the rehearsal dinner. If she'd just invited him to the wedding, it would have been easier to ignore. But she wanted him there with our families, in an intimate setting. She created the stage for her own humiliation. Edit 2. Someone asked what happened to the deposits. Rachel's family lost about $15,000 between the venue, caterer, and flowers. My family lost about $8,000 on the rehearsal dinner and my side of the guest expenses. It sucks, but it's cheaper than a divorce. Edit 3. Yes, I'm sure I made the right call. The moment she couldn't answer whether she was planning to leave me, I knew. You don't hesitate on that question if you're fully committed to someone. You just don't.
They handed me a check with more zeros than I'd seen in my entire life. Her father slid it across the mahogany table in his study, his face a mixture of disgust and desperation. My wife sat beside him, 3 months pregnant, her eyes unable to meet mine. Her mother stood by the window, arms crossed, looking anywhere but at me. The deal was simple. Take the money, sign the divorce papers, disappear, and never speak about what happened. They wanted me gone before the baby arrived, before their family name got dragged through the mud, before anyone could connect the dots. I picked up the pen, looked at the check one more time, and smiled. Then I signed every page without reading a single word. That night, I boarded a plane and left the country. What they didn't know was that I'd been planning my exit long before they made their offer. And what none of us knew was that the truth was far more complicated than any of us imagined. If you want to know how this story ends, and trust me, you really do, hit that like button right now and subscribe to Vox's Stories. Because what happened next changed everything, and I mean everything. Stay with me until the end. This is one story you won't forget. Let me take you back to the beginning. I met my wife 6 years ago at a company event. She was beautiful, confident, came from money, the kind of family that had their name on buildings downtown. I was a middle-class guy, working hard, trying to build something for myself. When she showed interest in me, I couldn't believe my luck. We dated for a year, got married in a ceremony that cost more than my annual salary, and for a while, things seemed perfect. But perfection is usually just a mask covering something rotten underneath. The cracks started showing about 2 years into our marriage. She became distant, always on her phone, always having last-minute plans with friends I'd never met. I tried talking to her about it, but she'd brush me off, tell me I was being paranoid, that I was too insecure. Her family never really accepted me anyway. To them, I was the guy who wasn't good enough, who didn't come from the right background, who didn't understand their world. Family dinners were painful, full of subtle jabs and condescending questions about my career. I stayed because I loved her, or at least I loved the idea of who I thought she was. Then came the night everything fell apart. I came home early from a business trip, wanted to surprise her. The house was dark except for the light coming from our bedroom. I heard voices, laughter, sounds that made my stomach drop. I stood in the hallway for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds, trying to process what I was hearing. When I finally pushed the door open, there they were. My wife and her colleague, someone she'd mentioned casually in passing, someone I'd never suspected. The look on her face wasn't guilt. It was annoyance, like I'd interrupted something inconvenient. I didn't yell. I didn't break things. I just turned around, grabbed my keys, and left. I drove to a hotel and sat in the dark room trying to figure out what to do next. The next morning, she called me crying, begging me to come home, saying it was a mistake, that it meant nothing. I asked her one question: how long? She went quiet. Then she admitted it had been going on for almost a year. A year of lies, a year of me being made a fool, a year of her family dinners where they looked down on me while their precious daughter was doing this behind my back. I told her I needed time to think. What I actually needed was information. I contacted a lawyer quietly, started documenting everything, started protecting myself. I knew her family had resources, connections, power. If this turned into a fight, I needed to be prepared. 2 weeks later, she dropped the bomb. She was pregnant. My first thought was maybe this could fix things. Maybe this was a sign we should try. Then she told me the truth. She didn't know if it was mine. Those words hung in the air like poison. She'd been with him without protection. She'd been with me without protection. And now there was a baby, and nobody knew whose it was. Before I could even process that, her family got involved. Her father called me to his office, the same place where he'd interviewed me before approving our marriage, like I was applying for a job. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. He told me his daughter had made a mistake, that young people sometimes do foolish things, but that their family had a reputation to protect. He said the other man was willing to step up, that he came from a good family, that he was a better match anyway. Then came the offer, a substantial amount of money in exchange for a quick, quiet divorce. No custody battle, no paternity test, no drama. Just disappear. I sat there listening to him talk about me like I was a problem to be solved, a stain to be removed. Her mother chimed in, talking about how this was best for everyone, how I could start fresh, how this money could change my life. My wife sat there silent, letting her parents negotiate my exit like I was a business deal gone bad. And something inside me just clicked. I realized I didn't want to fight for this. I didn't want to fight for a woman who betrayed me, for a family that never respected me, for a child that might not even be mine. I wanted out, and they were offering me a golden parachute. So I smiled. I picked up that pen, and I signed everything they put in front of me. They looked relieved, probably expecting more resistance. Her father shook my hand like we'd just closed a successful business transaction. Her mother actually smiled. My wife finally looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes, maybe regret, maybe relief. I didn't care anymore. I took the check, went home, packed 2 suitcases with everything that mattered, and booked a one-way ticket to Southeast Asia. By midnight, I was at the airport. By sunrise, I was halfway across the world. If you're still watching, drop a comment and let me know what you think so far. Would you have taken the money? And if you haven't subscribed to Vox's Stories yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button because this story is about to get even crazier. I landed in a country where nobody knew me, where I could breathe without the weight of their judgment, where every day felt like a reset. I found a small apartment near the beach, nothing fancy, but it was mine. I started freelancing, using my skills to work remotely. The money they gave me sat in my account, untouched. I didn't need it yet, and honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to use it. It felt dirty somehow, like accepting payment for my humiliation. But it was there, a safety net, a reminder that I'd walked away on my own terms. Weeks passed. I started sleeping better, eating better, even smiling again. I made friends with locals, learned some of the language, started exploring. I didn't check social media, didn't reach out to anyone from my old life. I was genuinely starting over. Then, about 2 months after I left, I got a message from an old friend back home. He said he thought I should know something. Apparently, my ex-wife and her lover were planning a big wedding. Her family was going all out, making it a major social event, announcing it in the papers, the whole show. She was about 5 months pregnant now, showing, and they were framing it as a beautiful love story, 2 people who found each other and were starting a family. I laughed when I read that. A love story. They were rewriting history, erasing me completely, turning their affair into some romantic fairy tale. My friend also mentioned something else. There were rumors, whispers at social gatherings. Some people knew the timeline didn't add up, knew she'd been married to me when she got pregnant, knew this wasn't as clean as they were pretending. But money and power have a way of controlling narratives, and her family had plenty of both. I was about to put my phone away, about to go back to my peaceful new life, when another message came through. This one was from a number I didn't recognize. It was brief. You might want to see this. Attached was a photo of a medical document. I zoomed in, trying to read it. It was a prenatal paternity test result. My hand started shaking as I read the details. The test had been done at a private clinic, probably at the family's insistence, probably to make sure everything was neat and tidy before the wedding. But the results were anything but neat. The baby wasn't his. According to the DNA test, the man she was about to marry, the man her family had chosen as the acceptable replacement, was not the biological father. My mind raced. If it wasn't his, then whose? Was it mine? Or was there someone else, another layer to this disaster that nobody knew about? The document didn't say. It only confirmed what the baby wasn't. I stared at that image for hours, trying to decide what to do with this information. Part of me wanted to send it to everyone, blow up their perfect narrative, watch their carefully constructed lies crumble. But another part of me, the part that had found peace in the past 2 months, didn't want to go back into that toxic world. I slept on it. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of messages. My phone was blowing up. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who'd received that document. Someone had leaked it, sent it to family members, friends, social circles, maybe even the media. The wedding plans were in chaos. Her family was scrambling, trying to control the damage, issuing statements about privacy violations and false information. But the truth was out, and it was spreading like wildfire. The man she was supposed to marry was furious, publicly calling off the engagement, saying he'd been lied to and manipulated. Her family's reputation, the thing they'd paid me to protect, was crumbling in real time. My phone rang. It was her father. I stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. Finally, I picked up. He didn't say hello. He just started yelling, accusing me of leaking the document, of sabotaging their family, of being vindictive and cruel. I let him finish, then calmly told him I had nothing to do with it. I'd been halfway around the world, living my life, not thinking about any of them. The silence on the other end was heavy. Then he asked me a question that caught me off guard. Is the baby yours? I told him the truth. I didn't know. We'd never done a paternity test. I'd signed away my rights before anyone thought to check. There was a long pause. Then he hung up. For those of you still watching, make sure you're subscribed to Vox's Stories and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who loves a good story because we read just getting to the best part. Days later, I got another call, this time from a lawyer representing my ex-wife. They wanted to discuss the possibility of a paternity test. If the baby was mine, there were legal implications, financial responsibilities, custody questions. Everything I'd signed might not hold up if it turned out I was the biological father and had been coerced into giving up my rights under false pretenses. I told the lawyer I'd think about it. Honestly, I didn't know what I wanted. Did I want to be a father to a child born from betrayal? Did I want to be tied to these people for the next 18 years? Did I want to reopen wounds that were finally starting to heal? I talked to a local friend I'd made, an older man who ran a cafe near my apartment. He'd been through his own share of life drama. He listened to everything, then said something simple but profound. The question isn't what they want or what's fair. The question is what kind of man you want to be and what you can live with. That night, I made my decision. I agreed to the paternity test, but on my terms. I'd fly back, do the test, and get the results. If the child was mine, I'd be involved, not because I owed them anything, but because a child deserves to know their father. If the child wasn't mine, I'd walk away permanently, no lingering questions, no what-ifs. The flight back felt surreal. I'd left in the middle of the night like a fugitive. Now I was returning in broad daylight, holding all the cards. The test was scheduled at a neutral medical facility. When I walked in, she was already there, visibly pregnant now, looking tired and scared. We didn't speak. The procedure was quick, just a simple cheek swab for me and a blood draw for her. The doctor said results would take about a week. I stayed at a hotel, avoiding everyone, waiting. 6 days later, the call came. The doctor asked me to come in to discuss the results in person. My heart was pounding as I sat in his office. He opened the file and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Then he said the words that changed everything again. You are not the biological father. I felt a wave of emotions, relief, sadness, confusion. If it wasn't me and it wasn't him, then who? The doctor continued. However, there's something else you should know. The test revealed something unusual. We ran additional markers because of some inconsistencies. It appears the biological father shares a significant genetic similarity with the other man who was tested previously. It took me a second to process what he was saying. Then it hit me. The biological father was related to her former fiancé, a brother, a cousin, someone from his family. The affair was even messier than anyone had realized. She hadn't just been with one man, she'd been involved with someone else from the same family, and nobody had known. The doctor handed me the full report. He said he was obligated to share this with all parties involved due to the legal nature of the tests. I walked out of that office feeling like I'd just witnessed a car crash in slow motion. This wasn't my problem anymore, but I knew the fallout was going to be nuclear. And I was right. Within 24 hours, the story exploded. The other family was in chaos, accusations flying, relationships destroyed. My ex-wife's family went into complete lockdown, refusing to comment publicly. She disappeared from social media entirely. The whole situation became a cautionary tale in their social circles, whispered about at parties, referenced in vague terms. As for me, I was free. Legally, emotionally, completely free. I flew back to my new life with a clear conscience and closure I didn't know I needed. The money they'd given me, I ended up donating half to a children's charity and used the other half to start a small business. I wanted to build something that was entirely mine, something that had nothing to do with them or that chapter of my life. Months passed. I heard through the grapevine that she'd had the baby, that her family was supporting her as a single mother, that the father, whoever he actually was, wasn't involved. I felt sorry for the child, born into such chaos, but I also knew it wasn't my responsibility to fix. I'd been given an out, twice actually, and I'd taken it both times. Some might judge me for that, say I should have fought harder or cared more. But here's the thing, you can't pour from an empty cup. That marriage, that family, that whole situation had drained me completely. Walking away wasn't giving up. It was choosing myself, choosing peace, choosing a future that wasn't built on lies and betrayal. A year after I left, I met someone new. Someone kind, honest, someone with no hidden agendas or family drama. We took things slow, built a foundation of trust and communication. I told her everything about my past, expecting her to run. Instead, she thanked me for being honest and said my past showed I knew my worth and was unafraid to start over. That's when I knew I'd truly moved on. I wasn't defined by what happened to me. I was defined by how I responded to it. If you've made it this far in the story, thank you for sticking with Vox's stories. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Was I right to walk away? Should I have handled things differently? And please, share this video with anyone who might need to hear it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a better life and not looking back. Now here's what I learned from all of this, and I hope it helps someone out there who might be going through something similar. First, know your worth. When people show you who they really are, believe them the first time. I wasted time trying to make excuses for behavior that was inexcusable. Second, money can't fix betrayal. Her family thought they could pay me to disappear, and that would solve everything. But betrayal has consequences that money can't erase. Third, the truth always comes out. They tried to bury it, rewrite the story, control the narrative. But truth has a way of surfacing when you least expect it. And finally, starting over isn't failure. It's courage. It takes guts to walk away from the familiar, even when the familiar is toxic, and build something new. I still live abroad. I still run my business. I'm still with the woman I met, and we're talking about getting married next year. My life isn't perfect, nobody's is, but it's honest. It's mine, and it's built on a foundation of truth and self-respect. I don't regret signing those papers. I don't regret taking the money. I don't regret leaving, because all of it led me here, to a place where I'm genuinely happy, where I sleep well at night, where I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder or wondering when the next lie will surface. As for my ex-wife and her family, I don't keep tabs on them. I heard her father's business took a hit after the scandal, that their social standing never quite recovered. I heard she eventually moved to another city to escape the gossip. I hope she's doing okay, not for her sake, but for her child's sake. Kids don't choose the circumstances of their birth, and that baby deserves a chance at a good life despite everything. The man she was supposed to marry, I heard he eventually moved on too, married someone else, cut ties with whoever in his family was involved. The whole thing left scars on everyone it touched. But scars are just proof that you survived something, and sometimes survival is the greatest victory. I survived betrayal. I survived manipulation. I survived having my worth questioned and my dignity challenged. And I came out the other side stronger, wiser, and more certain of who I am and what I deserve. So if you're watching this and you're in a situation where you feel trapped, where you feel like you have no options, where people are telling you what you should accept or tolerate, I want you to hear this. You always have a choice. It might not be easy. It might be terrifying. It might mean walking away from everything you know. But you have a choice, and choosing yourself is never selfish. It's necessary. You can't live a full life if you constantly dimming your light to make other people comfortable. You can't build genuine happiness on a foundation of lies and compromise. Thank you for watching this story on Vox's Stories. If you enjoyed it, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Comment below with your thoughts, your experiences, your advice for anyone going through something similar. And share this video, because you never know who might need to hear it today. Remember, your story isn't over just because one chapter ended badly. Sometimes the best chapters are the ones you write after you close a toxic book. I'll see you in the next story. Take care of yourself, know your worth, and never be afraid to start over.
My fiancé said, "My best friend, who also happens to be my ex, is walking me down the aisle. If you loved me, you'd be okay with that." I said, "Got it." The next day, I called the venue, canceled every reservation, and sent her the invoice. "My name is Marcus. I'm 32, work in software development, and until 3 weeks ago, I was engaged to someone I thought I knew. Sarah and I had been together for 4 years. We met through mutual friends, and honestly, the first 3 years were perfect. She was funny, ambitious, supportive during my career transition, and we just clicked. I proposed last October at the beach where we had our first date. She cried, I cried, her parents cried when we told them. Everyone was thrilled. The problems started around January when wedding planning kicked into high gear. Sarah kept mentioning her best friend Marcus. Yes, same name as me, which made conversations confusing, who she'd known since college. She'd mentioned him before in passing, but suddenly, he was everywhere. Marcus this, Marcus that. Remember when Marcus and I did this thing in Barcelona? One night in early February, I asked her directly, "So what's the deal with you and him? You two dated, right?" She got defensive immediately. "That was a decade ago, babe. We were kids. We're just friends now. He knows me better than anyone." "Better than me?" I asked. "Different. He knows the old me." I didn't love that answer, but I let it go. Big mistake. Fast forward to March 15th. We're at her parents' house for Sunday dinner, and her mom asks about the father-daughter dance. Sarah's dad passed away when she was 16, so this was always going to be a sensitive topic. Sarah gets quiet, then says she's been thinking about it a lot. "I want Marcus to walk me down the aisle," she said. The table went silent. Her mom looked confused. Her sister Lisa's fork literally stopped halfway to her mouth. "Your friend Marcus?" her mom asked. "Yes, he's been there for me through everything. Dad would have loved him." I kept my voice steady. "That's usually a family role, Sarah. What about your Uncle Jim, or your mom could walk you?" "I want Marcus. This is my wedding, and he's the most important person in my life besides you. Besides me. Not after you or next to you. Besides." We drove home in silence. I was processing, trying to be understanding. Maybe this was grief. Maybe she needed this closure. That night in bed, I tried again. "Sarah, I need to understand this. Your ex-boyfriend walking you down the aisle sends a really specific message to everyone there." She sat up. "Are you serious right now?" "This is exactly what I was afraid of. You're jealous of a friendship. It's not just a friendship when he's taking the role of the most important man in your life at our wedding." "Oh my God." She actually laughed. "You're being so insecure." "Marcus is gay, by the way. He came out 2 years after we broke up. Is that better? Does that make you feel like a big, strong man now?" That felt like a slap. "This isn't about his sexuality, Sarah. It's about what this symbolizes. It symbolizes that I have people who love me unconditionally, not just when it's convenient for them." Her voice was ice cold now. "You know what? My best friend, who also happens to be my ex, is walking me down the aisle. If you loved me, you'd be okay with that. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I nodded. Got it. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and went to sleep. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, March 16th, Sarah left for work at 7:30 like always. At 8:05, I called the venue. The coordinator, Jennifer, answered cheerfully. Hi, Jennifer, this is Marcus Chen. I need to cancel our wedding reservation for August 12th. Long pause. Oh no. Is everything okay? Just need to cancel. What's the cancellation policy? She walked me through it. We'd paid the 50% deposit, $12,000, which was non-refundable per the contract we'd signed, but canceling now meant we wouldn't owe the remaining balance. I'll send the cancellation confirmation and final invoice today, Jennifer said quietly. I'm really sorry, Marcus. Then I called the caterer, the florist, the photographer, the DJ, the cake designer. Each conversation was the same. Yes, I want to cancel. Yes, I understand the deposit is gone. Send me the final invoice. By noon, I had 6 invoices. Total damage, $28,000. Sarah had paid for her dress and the invitations, about $4,000 total. I'd covered everything else because I made more and frankly, I wanted to. I compiled every invoice into one PDF, wrote a simple email to Sarah with the subject line, Wedding Cancellation Confirmation, attached the file, and hit send. Then I texted her, check your email when you have a minute. I packed a bag and drove to my buddy Jason's apartment. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and just said, beer's in the fridge. Update 1, Sarah called at 2:17 p.m. I didn't answer. She called 6 more times. Then the texts started. What the hell did you do? Call me right now. You canceled our wedding? How could you do this without talking to me? Marcus, this is insane. You need to fix this immediately. At 5 p.m., I finally responded, you told me your ex is the most important person in your life and should walk you down the aisle. I realized you're right. You should marry someone who's okay with that. I'm not. Since Marcus is walking you down the aisle anyway, I figured he should probably pay for the venue too. The invoice shows exactly what was canceled. You two can plan something more appropriate together. My phone rang instantly. I answered. You petty, vindictive child, she was screaming. Do you have any idea what you've done? I canceled a wedding that shouldn't happen. Because of who walks me down the aisle. You ended a 4-year relationship over that? No, Sarah. You ended it when you told me your ex-boyfriend's feelings matter more than your future husband's. I just made it official. He's gay, Marcus. How many times? I don't care if he's gay, straight, or from Mars. You prioritized his role in your wedding over my comfort as your groom. That told me everything. She started crying. We can fix this. We can talk to someone. Please don't do this. Are you willing to have someone else walk you down the aisle? Silence. Long, heavy silence. That's what I thought, I said, and hung up. Update 2. Sarah showed up at Jason's apartment at 11 p.m. Jason answered the door and told her I didn't want to see her. She shouted through the door that I was ruining both our lives over nothing, that everyone would think I was crazy, that her mother was hysterical. Tell her to ask Marcus for comfort, I called out. The other Marcus. He knows her best, apparently. She left after 20 minutes. The next day, March 17th, her sister Lisa texted me. Can we talk? Just me and you. Coffee? We met that afternoon. Lisa looked exhausted. Marcus, I need you to know something, she started. I love my sister, but she's wrong here. Dead wrong. Okay? She called him last night. The other Marcus. Told him what happened, that you canceled everything. Lisa stirred her coffee without drinking it. He told her he never agreed to walk her down the aisle. Said she mentioned it once, and he told her it was inappropriate, that it would disrespect you and your relationship. Sarah apparently decided to push it anyway, and figured he'd come around. I blinked. He said no? He said absolutely not. He also said, and I'm quoting, Sarah, I love you, but you're being delusional. That man was going to be your husband. You don't do that to someone you actually love. Lisa finally looked at me. He's not paying for anything, Marcus. He thinks she created this whole mess. Where does that leave her? 28,000 in the hole and no wedding. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. Mom offered to pay half if Sarah apologized to you and you guys went to counseling. Sarah refused, said you should apologize to her. Update 3. A week passed. Mutual friends started reaching out. Most were supportive of me once they heard the actual story. A few thought I overreacted, that I should have just dealt with it for one day. On March 24th, Sarah's mom called me. Eleanor had always been kind to me, and losing her hurt almost as much as losing Sarah. Marcus, honey, I'm not calling to change your mind, she said softly. I'm calling to say I'm sorry. What Sarah did was selfish and cruel, and you deserved better. Her father would have been horrified by how she treated you. I couldn't speak for a moment. Thank you, Eleanor. That means everything. She's moving back home for a while. Lisa's helping her cancel the invitations. The other Marcus, the friend, apparently stopped speaking to her too. Said she used his sexuality as a shield for inappropriate behavior and he won't be part of it. I never wanted to blow up her whole life, I said. You didn't, sweetheart. She did that herself when she valued being right over being loved. Final update. It's been 3 weeks since I canceled the wedding. I moved my stuff out of our apartment while Sarah was at her mom's. Left my key on the counter with a note that said, I hope you find someone who loves you enough to let themselves disappear. I'm not that person. Jason's letting me stay with him until I find a new place. Work's been good. Busy enough to distract me. I've been going to therapy, which helps. My therapist said something that stuck. Sometimes love isn't enough when someone fundamentally doesn't respect you. I don't hate Sarah. I think she genuinely didn't understand what she was asking or why it mattered. Maybe years of friendship with Marcus blurred the lines for her. Maybe grief over her dad made her cling to familiar comfort. I don't know. What I do know is that I couldn't marry someone who thought my feelings were negotiable, who thought if you loved me was a valid way to dismiss legitimate concerns, who prioritized symbolism for someone else over partnership with me. Last I heard, Sarah's talking to a therapist too. Lisa says she's slowly realizing what she lost, but it's too late. You can't unring that bell. The other Marcus, her friend, sent me a message last week. I'm sorry she dragged me into this. For what it's worth, you made the right call. She wasn't ready to be married. I thanked him. He seemed like a decent guy caught in an impossible situation. Some people think I'm petty for canceling everything the way I did. Maybe they're right. But I've spent enough years being the accommodating one, the understanding one, the one who swallows his pride for peace. Not this time.